Chapter 8:17. Will it work or not? Although it's a bit hasty, it's also worth looking forward to. I love to see a father and son killing each other. On the desolate island, Akiji looked at the deep stars in the sky while lying on a clean and smooth rock. The marines around him were like him, casually finding a place to sleep. When Dustless used Den Mushi to bewitch Squard, Akiji was listening next to him. It doesn't matter if it succeeds or not, it doesn't matter anyway, just treat it as after-dinner entertainment. Compared to Akiji, Dustless was more casual. After learning the truth, if he was lucky, Squard might be able to hurt Whitebeard. If he was unlucky, he would definitely be captured on the spot. In short, whether it succeeds or not, it won't take Whitebeard's life. As time passed, the sky was getting darker and darker. The beautiful night sky was particularly quiet, and the biting cold wind rarely stopped. It was almost late at night, and only Whitebeard was sitting alone on the deck drinking. Pirates were rude by nature, and they didn't know how to be gentle and elegant, so they simply picked up the wine jar and poured it into their mouths. They were very happy. Squard walked close to Whitebeard with heavy steps, looking at the old man in the wind. His heart was complicated. Oyaji, remembering what Dustless had mentioned before, Squard summoned up the courage to say it. He looked at Whitebeard with eyes full of firmness and trust. He didn't believe that Whitebeard would lie to them. It turned out to be you, Squard. Whitebeard's old eyes were clear, and he once again restored his former wisdom and kindness, and said in a rather kind tone, "You have been with the Whitebeard pirates for some time, probably for decades." His eyes gradually became distant, and he recalled the good times of the past. Whitebeard's tone was particularly old, and now he suddenly looked back. He was already 50 years old. Yes, Squard's throat choked, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth were stuffed back again. Suddenly, Dustless's figure and his words flashed in his mind, and his hesitation turned into determination. "You came to me in the middle of the night. You should have something to say, Squard. We are father and son. If you have something to say, just say it, there is no need to hide it." Whitebeard pretended to be unhappy, but his words revealed his friendliness. Hearing this, Squard nodded and said in a deep voice, "Why is Oyaji so obsessed with Ace? He treats him even better than Marco and Jozu." After that, Squard stared at Whitebeard with his burning eyes. "Ace is a little different from others." A look of surprise flashed across Whitebeard's face. He did not expect Squard to ask this question, so he said unnaturally. He quietly looked at Squard and instinctively felt that something was wrong. "Why do you ask this question? Did you hear any bad news? Is there someone behind the scenes?" Squard. Throughout his life, Whitebeard had not only trained his absolute strength, but he had also trained his unique wisdom. His pair of shrewd eyes rarely made mistakes in judging people. Squard hesitated for a moment, and after a moment of contemplation, he remembered Whitebeard's trust in him and took out the golden Den Mushi that he used to contact Dustless. "This is the Den Mushi of the Marine Admiral named Royce South. It inexplicably appeared in my cabin, and my men happened to meet it and sent it over." Without the slightest concealment, Squard answered truthfully. "It coincides with Akagami's guess. I didn't expect it to be him." Taking the golden Den Mushi from Squard, the doubts in Whitebeard's eyes turned into understanding, and then he looked directly at Squard. His wise eyes were full of reason. "What did he say to you?" "It should be about Ace. He instigated us father and son to kill each other." "Don't believe him, it's that man's inferior strategy." Whitebeard's face was full of sarcasm. Squard naturally wouldn't blindly believe what Dustless said. He glanced at Whitebeard and whispered, "He said that Ace is the son of One Piece, Roger, and his father is going to sacrifice the lives of all the people on the ship to save Ace." When mentioning Roger, Squard's voice was abnormally heavy, and his eyes were full of killing intent. "I knew it, he will definitely instigate the relationship between us father and son." Whitebeard's face flashed with a strange color, and he avoided the main point and talked about the relationship between Ace and Roger directly. Silence was tantamount to admission, and it was equivalent to Whitebeard tacitly admitting the relationship between Ace and Roger. "Squard, I know the hatred between you and Roger, but the past is like the wind. I hope you and Ace can resolve the hatred," Whitebeard sincerely advised Squard as he scrutinized his face. Perhaps it was because of a moment of carelessness or because he trusted Squard too much, Whitebeard did not notice the scarlet demonic light in Squard's eyes. His eyes were blood red, and he felt like he had turned into a hellish Shura. His breathing was abnormally heavy, and the emotion of revenge spread and filled the nerves in Squard's mind. Squard picked up the big sword in his hand and jumped up, and he directly slashed at Whitebeard's head. This sudden state happened too fast, and everything happened in a flash. When Whitebeard realized it, it was already too late, and the sharp sword full of sawtooth touched his chest. Chapter 8:18. Recommend this book to everyone. Naruto's Almighty Master, it's a good book. Whitebeard didn't expect that his son, who had respected him for many years, would attack him like a blood enemy, and his means were extremely ruthless and cold. He directly stabbed his heart in his chest. He wanted to kill Whitebeard with one blow, and it could also be seen how deep Squard's hatred for Whitebeard was. Clang clang clang, the crisp roar fell, and it was different from the flesh being pierced and cut into pieces. This was similar to the sound of steel collision, and the effect was as magical as the elixir. It went deep into Squard's soul and pulled him back to his thoughts. The blood in his eyes also converged. This, looking at the tip of the sword inserted into Whitebeard's chest, Squard didn't react. He rubbed his eyes and thought it was an illusion caused by high tension. Such a short distance, and he can still resist with armament hockey. Squard's face was ugly. He gambled on a fatal blow, but it didn't hurt or itch for Whitebeard. Looking up, Whitebeard's face didn't change, and there was no reaction at all. It was an invisible mockery of his weakness. "Squard, I know you are unwilling. It is undeniable that I usually deal with some things, and I do favor Ace, but I treat you as my sons, and there is no distinction between high and low." The big sword in Whitebeard's hand danced quickly. Under the moonlight, it was particularly sharp, and it could cut iron like mud. Squard closed his eyes and quietly waited for disappointment to come. He didn't feel regret. He hated One Piece. Now that Fire Fist Ace was the son of his enemy, Squard naturally hated him too. After waiting for a long time, his head didn't move. He opened his eyes and looked at Whitebeard. Looking down at Squard with his broad body, Whitebeard restrained his killing intent. Finally, the broadsword in his hand fell. This son had been with him for decades. Whitebeard couldn't kill him today even if he wanted to assassinate him. In the final analysis, it was all Dustless's instigation. "Royce South. The hatred between us has deepened," Whitebeard said hoarsely, and the big sword in his hand was more dazzling. The cold air around it was more penetrating, and people didn't dare to look directly at it. Plop. Looking at Whitebeard's posture, Squard couldn't bear it and fell to the ground. His forehead was oozing with cold sweat. Whitebeard took a step forward. Squard thought that he would completely kill him, but unexpectedly, Whitebeard stretched out his big warm hand. 3 days later, in the afternoon, the chaotic world regained its tranquility, and the situation was clear. Whitebeard returned to the island where he was originally stationed, and Big Imam slipped away in advance, leaving only the corpses on the ground. The entire Whitebeard pirates were ruined by Big Imam. There were even many people who were brutally dismembered before their corpses could even be found. The furious Whitebeard immediately led the entire pirate regiment to fight with Bigu's mom. Compared with her reckless self a few years ago, Bigu's mom is undoubtedly much smarter now. She knows that Whitebeard is old and there is no need to fight with her to the death, so she retreats. The Whitebeard pirates didn't get much advantage. Marlin's Marine Headquarters. That bastard Gecko Moria really can't be trusted, or else we'll suffer heavy losses. In the Fleet Admiral's office, Sengoku slammed the table angrily, and a crack visible to the naked eye appeared. He yelled, "That bastard's words are tantamount to fart out of thin air. You can't believe him at all." Gecko Moria once promised to deal with Whitebeard, but in the end, he didn't even see a ghost. The only Shichibukai who really came were Blackbeard and Bartholomew. This time, I almost fell into Whitebeard's trap. Thinking of Whitebeard, Sengoku said fortunately. If it wasn't for Dustless to see through his strategy and secretly instigate Squard, and finally instigate the war between Big's mom and Whitebeard, I'm afraid the Marine would be doomed. What should we do with Gecko Moria? Akainu asked hoarsely, with a blazing killing intent in his voice. People who don't have a firm stance should be eradicated early. They will only use the rights given to them by the Marine. Expecting him to help the Marine is a dream. Gecko Moria always wanted revenge. More than 10 years ago, the New World's Moria pirates fought against 100 Beast Kaido, but they were hit hard by the latter's overwhelming strength. Since then, they have been unable to recover and have been doing nothing for more than 10 years. Until today, Gecko Moria has not risen. Even if you want to take back the title of Shichibukai, there is no need to take it now. When we execute Ace, we can force him to participate. It's not too late to kill him after that. This is also a waste. Dustless said with a distant look. Although Gecko Moria's strength is average, in the future war, it is still very useful to deal with the Whitebeard pirates. It's not too late to kill him. Let that waste live for a while. Akainu's eyes flashed away, and then he sat on the sofa with his eyes closed. Obviously, he acquiesced to Dustless's approach. Even if they destroy Gecko Moria, it's time to squeeze his value. Sengoku and others also have the same view. For pirates like Gecko Moria, they must not be soft-hearted. Once he has no value, what awaits him will be death or forever being locked in a place like Impel Down. Who let Gecko Moria go against them? In Sengoku's view, this is his own cocoon and he can't blame others. Chapter 8:19. Sengoku and others also have the same view. For pirates like Gecko Moria, they must not be soft-hearted. Once he has no use value, what awaits him will be death or forever being locked in a place like Impel Down. Who let Gecko Moria go against them? In Sengoku's view, this is his own fault and he can't blame others. But then again, Whitebeard chose to let go of Squard. Akiji was quite surprised. A person who wanted to end his life, Whitebeard can still smile and forget about it. This courage is indeed worthy of respect. His eyes subconsciously looked at Sengoku. These two men are from the same era, but their temperaments are completely opposite. Compared with the King of the Sea, Whitebeard, Sengoku is too narrow-minded and usually likes to talk nonsense. Well, he's just putting on a show. No wonder that man's pirates declined so fast. He, as a captain, has to take great responsibility first. Fleet Admiral Sengoku said righteously, his face was not red and he was not panting. Dustless and others rolled their eyes, but this is also an undeniable fact. The Whitebeard pirates are indeed in danger now. This time, Big's mom dared to take the risk of a raid to explain everything. Whitebeard is now just a critically ill tiger. Over the years, the sea has been relatively quiet, and Whitebeard has also lived in seclusion. Even many pirates have forgotten about him. It's no wonder that Marine started with this critically ill tiger. What about Garp? His eyes quietly spread. Sengoku saw Garp disappear and asked with some doubts. He received 2 apprentices a while ago, one is called Corby, and the other is called Bellamebo. Recently, it seems that he has been training them both. Looking out of the window, on the spacious playground, the lonely Garp came into view, and his 2 new apprentices. This time, the reason why Fire Fist Ace was exposed and impelled down was because of Garp. Whether it was intentional or not, he couldn't get away with it. His eyes turned back and fell on Sengoku's head again. He saw that his face was full of helplessness. Obviously, Sengoku was also caught in the same difficult choice as Whitebeard. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. That old man can be considered as a tragedy. Dustless sighed as he lamented the fickle affairs of the world. Garp's experience really makes people feel the twists and turns of fate. 2 grandsons and 1 son have stepped on the opposite side of him. Especially Ace is about to be publicly executed by the Marine. Garp's heart is very uncomfortable, but he is a Marine, so he can only choose to stare. On the other hand, Garp stood firmly on this side. He was destined to treat Fire Fist Ace coldly. How comical, Dustless sighed as he looked at Garp's aged figure on the training field. Comical. None of them seemed to understand what Dustless was talking about. They were all confused, but they could all see the doubt in each other's eyes. They looked at Dustless with confused eyes. Everyone has their own position, and their belief has never changed. However, in my opinion, this is just a form of self-restraint. How can a creature like a human be restrained by one's position? What should be done, and do as one pleases. Otherwise, one would become like Garp. Dustless whispered to himself in his heart, looking at Garp on the field below. He couldn't help but shake his head. Garp's feelings in his heart were naturally to save Ace from prison, but he was restrained by the ridiculous thing of his position. If he took action in the war of the future generations, maybe Fire Fist Ace would have escaped from prison. There is no need to be bound by his position. He can do things according to his own heart. He can judge a thing according to his own emotions. After a while, he silently retracted his gaze. Dustless once again restored his previous calm. Ace's life and death, as well as Garp's current sentimentality, have nothing to do with him. For the Marine and even for this world, Dustless is just an outsider. There is no need to worry about these trivial things. The relationship between Sengoku and Garp is known to the world. He is not in a hurry, so Dustless doesn't need to be in a hurry. Within the mysterious ocean, everything within a radius of a few dozen kilometers was dark and gloomy. Dark clouds were rolling, and darkness was the only main color in this ocean that was forbidden from living creatures. In the vast sea, the new battleship of the Straw Hat Pirates, thousands of sunshine, like a meteor, passed through layers of stormy waves and officially invaded the core area of the Devil's Sea. Bink's whine, the melodious melody was carried by the chilly wind and spread across the dead silent ocean. The melody that came through the chilly wind was like a requiem written by the Grim Reaper, causing people to shiver all over. This dark ocean was the most dangerous place for humans, the heaven of the Grim Reaper. Nami, did we go to the wrong place? Did we invade hell? Usopp, who was born timid, trembled. This strange sea was isolated from the world. He had never even heard of it. It was as if it had been erased from human history. I just heard someone singing. Those who live in this strange sea are ghosts. They can even sing. It must be the Admiral that we offended. He used witchcraft to summon ghosts. That guy is really despicable. Usopp said with a serious expression. Sometimes, he would gnash his teeth in anger. Wu Chen was implicated even though he was lying down. Chapter 820. Everyone's eyes were focused on Usopp. At this moment, he was trembling, and his eyes flashed with panic. By the way, why did the Marines put the blame on us for the destruction of Eni's lobby? Isn't it a bit too stupid for them to just sit there and do nothing? The Marines are obviously trying to make us the scapegoat. Frankie, who joined the Straw Hat Pirates a few days ago, said. His tone was full of resentment. What worried him the most was that Pluton's blueprint was taken away. At first, it was Spandam, then he was killed by Dustless. It was self-evident who got the blueprint. Thinking about it, Frankie felt uncomfortable. He felt like all the machinery in his body was short-circuited. If it's just framing, then it's fine. The Marines have done a lot of this kind of thing. Sanji quietly leaned against the mast of the sail and immediately lit a cigarette. After blowing a smoke ring, he said, "I'm afraid we will become the focus of the world in the future. It's inevitable that people will be jealous of us. Being narrow-minded, jealous, greedy, and wanting to stand out, this is the nature of a pirate. The more famous a pirate is, the more they want to hunt down pirates with high bounties. Now that the Straw Hat Pirates have risen in fame, they will inevitably face attacks from all sides. Conquering Enies Lobby, which has been safe for 800 years, this kind of world-shaking event is enough to make all the pirates who want to be famous rush to it. Fame is good and bad. While enjoying the admiration of the world, it is bound to attract attention from all sides and various attacks. A few days ago, it was announced in the newspaper that all the CP9 members were killed. The only survivor was Califa. She was the only one who wasn't safe. I heard that she just fainted, and when she woke up, she pushed all the blame on us. That hateful woman." Nami gritted her teeth and said with a regretful expression. She seemed to hate that she didn't kill Califa at that time. Jirrrr. The smell of barbecue drifted into everyone's nostrils. Everyone looked for the source of the smell and saw Luffy eating meat. "Eat meat, eat meat. There's no need to worry about this kind of thing." Luffy wolfed down the fragrant barbecued meat. Compared to the crew members who had serious expressions, Luffy, as the captain, was exceptionally calm. He ate the meat calmly, attracting a lot of rolling eyes. Luffy, everyone exchanged glances with each other. Soon after, they let out a long sigh. They had an extremely speechless and troubled expression on their faces. Zoro saw it quite thoroughly, and he began to pick up the barbecue and wine and indulge in it. This appearance made Sanji's anger index suddenly rise. "Hey, green algae head, Luffy's nerves are nothing, but why are you acting like this?" Sanji stared at Zoro with dissatisfaction and said. Hearing this, Zoro opened his closed eyes and looked at Sanji, then continued to drink by himself. "We've completely fallen into a passive position. It's useless to think and worry blindly here. Instead of saying these useless things, why don't we look at the long term and continue to become stronger? This is the only right path." Zoro's words made everyone silent, including Sanji. It was useless to scratch their heads because they had no strategy to fight back. The Marines pushed all the blame on them and they could only swallow their anger. It was impossible to resist. They had no right to speak and no strength. In simpler words, in the end, it was because they were too weak that the Marines could ignore their feelings and push all the blame on the Straw Hat Pirates. But who killed that group of CP9? Usopp brought the topic back to the CP9's head, thinking of the tragic deaths of several people, his brows flashed with gloom. These words made everyone stunned, including Luffy, who was the reincarnation of a hungry ghost. He stopped what he was doing and became silent. Dustless's figure appeared in his mind, and Sanji's cold sweat flowed as he speculated, that guy is an admiral of the Marine, he shouldn't kill his own people, the CP9 didn't die because of the Demon Slayer order. At that time, there was no one in Enies Lobby who had the strength to kill all the CP9 members. Zoro opened his eyes, and his cold eyes gradually faded. The boiling fighting spirit in his heart was instantly extinguished. Dustless's overwhelming strength that could destroy everything was still vivid in his mind. At present, he really couldn't raise the will to resist. If he encountered the CP9, he could fight back and still have a chance to win. But if he encountered an unprecedented admiral like Dustless, he would only be killed on the spot. He wouldn't even be able to make a ripple, he would be suppressed on the spot. It's better if we expose him. If he dares to kill his own people, the Marines will definitely expel him and even kill him. Usopp said with bright eyes. Everyone nodded with admiration. This is indeed a good plan. In addition to Dustless, there are 3 other admirals in the marine. This kind of thing will only be a joke if it gets out. Robin, who was silent from beginning to end, suddenly said, "We are pirates, but he is an admiral, and there is no evidence yet." Even if there is evidence, will the Marines listen to pirates and catch an admiral? Robin couldn't help but feel speechless. The thoughts of these people are too naive. She is Wu Chen's secret chess. Naturally, she knows how huge Wu Chen's power is. Even if one day the truth is revealed to the world, Wu Chen's power all over the world will make the Marine afraid to shoot the rat for fear of breaking the vases. In the small swimming pool inside the yacht, Doflamingo was leisurely leaning against the shore. Treble was the same. Compared to Doflamingo, who had a face full of enjoyment, Treble was in fear and trepidation. "Shut up. I'm just a dog in front of him. I have to bite whoever he wants me to bite." Doflamingo suddenly opened his eyes, which were instantly bloodshot. Thinking of Dustless's figure, he gritted his teeth and roared, "When I'm not needed, he threw me into Dressrosa as a guard dog. Even that trash Caesar dares to flaunt his power in front of me. Outrageous." The angry roar filled with monstrous killing intent spread. The submarine under the sea trembled fiercely, and the water in the swimming pool instantly froze. Treble's face also became silent. It was undeniable that Dustless had indeed been keeping them in the dark. Most of the time, he had locked Doflamingo in Dressrosa and secretly cooperated with Caesar to develop the ancient weapon, Pluto. Treble's mouth twitched as he looked at the ferocious Doflamingo. He immediately thought of Doflamingo's self-esteem, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth were swallowed back. In this chaotic world where ambitious and ruthless people were born, it was actually a great gift to be able to live without worries. So what if he was someone else's dog? Moreover, being Dustless's dog was far better than being someone else's dog. However, this was related to Doflamingo's self-esteem. If he said it bluntly, he might be beaten up or even killed by the angry Doflamingo. Doflamingo was extremely aggrieved. Unless Dustless allowed it, he had to rely on the submarine if he wanted to leave Dressrosa openly. He was like a mouse that couldn't be exposed to the light. It was self-evident how aggrieved he was. "Now, let's go find Moria to cooperate and discuss how to deal with Royce South. He will definitely agree to our conditions." With a crazy bloodthirsty smile on his face, Doflamingo said confidently, "Over the years, I've roped in a lot of reliable people. Even that man has my informants around him. What's there to be afraid of?" Treble looked at the arrogant and exultant Doflamingo and finally chose to remain silent. He felt that Doflamingo's words were unreliable. So what if he had an informant? In the face of absolute strength, any conspiracy was nothing, let alone an informant. Chapter 822. Seeing that Doflamingo was so determined, Treble couldn't say anything. After all, Doflamingo is the boss of the family, and the words of the leader can't be refuted. That guy still looks at me with his old eyes from more than 10 years ago. I must teach him a lesson. Doflamingo's tone was full of revenge and hatred. From beginning to end, he had never been grateful to Dustless. He took him in because Dustless used him. Now the time has come, there is no need to continue to be his lackey. It's time to fight back. Gecko Moria, that idiot, Treble couldn't help but be speechless. He felt sad for Doflamingo's ability to choose allies. Gecko Moria is a 7 warlords of the sea, but his strength is really not flattering. Don't underestimate him, the enemy of the enemy is an ally. Doflamingo sneered. Anyone who has grievances, hatred, or indirect interest disputes with Dustless is an ally in disguise. I always feel that it's not appropriate to go against him. It's a stupid feeling like a moth to a flame. Treble said. Idiot, I can tell you clearly that even if we don't betray him, we may be killed by him in the future. Doflamingo said with great certainty. People like Dustless who do whatever they want, never care about the reason for killing people. Maybe just because he is unhappy, he will kill them. Treble lowered his head and sat on the shore with his fat body. This time, Doflamingo secretly came to find Gecko Moria. Even the rest of the Don Quixote pirates didn't know. It is enough to see the seriousness of Doflamingo's mission. This is also helpless. After following Dustless for more than 10 years, Doflamingo knows that Dustless's means are terrible. It is no exaggeration to say that wherever there is an island, there may be a white Zetsu's clone. Here we are, master. There was a respectful voice in the cabin. Doflamingo and Treble quickly dressed. After some tidying up, they stepped into Gecko Moria's territory, the terrifying three-masted ship. I thought I could breathe fresh air when I came out, but I didn't expect it to be such a rotten place. After going ashore, Doflamingo cursed his bad luck. He didn't expect Moonlight Moria to have such poor taste, choosing such a dark and rotten place as a base. He was as tasteless and vulgar as he was. Doflamingo, if you don't feel well, get out of here immediately. I didn't invite you over. Your dress Rosa is comfortable, but my place is indeed thousands of miles away. But in the end, it's just another person's dog. The merciless mockery fell on Doflamingo's face, causing his expression to take a turn for the worse. Dense killing intent floated on his face. Bang bang bang. The ground trembled, and a huge monster at least 5 or 6 meters tall appeared in front of Doflamingo and Treble's eyes. He was dressed like a bat, his skin was pale, and his whole body was filled with a chill. He was one of the 7 warlords of the sea, Moonlight Moria. What do you mean? Doflamingo exuded a strong murderous aura. It was a taboo to be called a lackey. Now, Uiguang Moria dared to slap him in the face. How could he bear it? 5 lines of different colors immediately gushed out from his hand, sharp as a knife. It seems that you want to fight. That's fine, but you'd better figure out what you're doing here. Moonlight Moria said calmly with a scary smile on his huge face. You win. After thinking about it, Doflamingo chose to stop. He came to talk about the content of cooperation, not to fight. But he still said unforgiving, if the guy's sand crocodile hadn't died, I would never cooperate with someone like you. And, who is that little girl? The content of our cooperation is only known to the 2 of us. Staring at the pink-haired girl behind Moonlight Moria with murderous intent, Doflamingo said unkindly, she's harmless. Kill her as soon as possible. Only the 2 of us know. Then what's the matter with the fat man behind you? Moonlight Moria looked at the girl behind him and laughed strangely. Her name is Perona. She's my subordinate. This is my territory. What's wrong with bringing my subordinates here? A lump? Treble was furious when he heard the words and glared at Moonlight Moria. His small eyes hidden in the crevices of his flesh were spewing flames. If it weren't for the existence of Doflamingo, he would have gone up and fought with Moonlight Moria. He actually came here, in the dead graveyard. The ground suddenly burst open, and a white head popped out. It was White Zetsu's avatar, looking at Doflamingo and Moonlight Moria, who had joined, and once again dived into the ground. Compared with the dead Devil's Triangular Sea, Mariewa is like spring all year round. His courage is not small. He carefully bowed his head for more than 10 years, but in the end, he chose to die. White Zetsu reported the information to Dustless for the first time. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't seem like a coincidence. The corners of Wu Chen's mouth opened slightly as he muttered to himself. Dustless can understand the appearance of the Straw Hat Pirates in the Devil's Triangular Sea, but Doflamingo obviously has bad intentions. If he remembers correctly, Bartholomew Kuma also went to Moria's territory. It's difficult for Dustless to treat this as an accident because these people are all his enemies, whether it's Ursa, the Straw Hat Pirates, Moonlight Moria, or Doflamingo. These people have grievances with Dustless. It's difficult to make Dustless not think too much. Hearing this, Hancock, who was standing behind Dustless, looked at him doubtfully. Her delicate and perfect jade face was full of puzzlement as she asked, "Young master, what are your orders?" "Go and bring me the Den Den Mushi that Sengoku gave me." When Hancock heard this, she thought it was an illusion and asked again, "Young master, are you sure it's the Den Den Mushi that Fleet Admiral Sengoku personally gave you?" Dustless rolled his eyes and said solemnly, "Of course. I thought I wouldn't need that thing, but I didn't expect it to be useful now. In that case, I will fulfill Sengoku's good intentions." White Zetsu looked at the master and servant blankly. He didn't understand what they meant. "I understand." Hancock nodded obediently and immediately disappeared into the dark corridor. Den Den Mushi. It looks very powerful. Is there such a Den Den Mushi? Seeing Hancock's back disappear, White Zetsu thought for a long time but still couldn't figure it out. Suddenly, a thought flashed in his mind. He realized that the Den Den Mushi was needed to destroy Eni's lobby a few days ago, and he couldn't help but sweat. Dustless Sama. Does he want to use the Den Den Mushi to order the destruction of the Sangue sailboat? White Zetsu asked in surprise. That's one of the 7 warlords of the sea, not a cabbage on the roadside. Dustless just closed his eyes and remained silent. He neither admitted nor denied it. Ta-ta-ta, after a while, there was a sound of messy footsteps, and a golden Den Den Mushi was held in his hand, and he was careful not to press the wrong button. "I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I believe that Sengoku also wants to teach Moria a lesson," Dustless said with a deep look in his eyes. He immediately took the golden Den Den Mushi from Hancock, and his eyes flashed with ridicule. "It's good to let Gecko Moria have a taste of the Demon Slayer command. Anyway, it won't kill him. Consider it a lesson for dealing with Whitebeard before." After that, Dustless didn't hesitate to press the button of the golden Den Den Mushi. Guru, in the Marine headquarters, the silver Den Den Mushi used to receive the signal of the golden Den Den Mushi emitted a harsh sound, which attracted Vice Admiral Mole who happened to pass by. He looked at the golden Den Den Mushi with a stunned face. Without waiting for Lieutenant General Mole to ask, the messenger in charge of receiving the signal reported loudly, "General Royce South has issued the demon-slaying order. The direction is the Triangular Sea of the Demons, the Triangular Sea of Terror." Chapter 824. The reason why the Straw Hat Pirates went with Brook was that Luffy thought he was too handsome. Of course, he also sympathized with Brook's rough identity. And they were attacked on the way. For various reasons, they chose to help Brook regain the lost shadow. What kind of guy would survive here? This place is simply a graveyard in disguise. Usopp, who was aware of the dead atmosphere around him, said. The large open space in front of them was filled with various tombstones. Obviously, they were all dead. Some of the tombstones had decayed. Obviously, the people who rested here had been dead for many years. "This place doesn't seem right," Robin also said with a depressed expression. She was keenly smelling that something was wrong. She always felt that there were countless eyes looking at them, which was very strange. Caw caw caw, the sound of the ground loosening came, attracting the attention of all the members of the Straw Hat Pirates, and then they saw a monster with a centaur head coming out of it. "It's a zombie." A shrill scream resounded through the sky, and Usopp and the timid Chopper fell directly to the ground. This unexpected scene made all the members of the Straw Hat Pirates petrified and stood motionless. Even Luffy's eyes were empty. But in the next second, it was replaced by a cool gold star. In the closed room, there were only 4 figures. "That guy is a Marine Admiral. I need chips to fight against him," at least chips that can tempt me. Gecko Moria said bluntly. It's best to be straightforward with people like Doflamingo. Of course, that's not a problem. Doflamingo waved his hand and said generously. To compete with people like Dushless, he must have something to impress Gecko Moria. Otherwise, there would be no profit. No one would help Doflamingo deal with Dushless. I will satisfy everything you want. Doflamingo laughed boldly, looking like a nouveau riche who didn't care. He had followed Dushless to plunder the people's wealth for more than 10 years. Doflamingo had accumulated countless treasures, or rather, things like devil fruits. In short, he didn't care. In order to deal with Dushless and get rid of his hateful identity as a lackey, Doflamingo chose to throw caution to the wind. Well, I hope you don't talk empty talk. And the alliance you mentioned, it shouldn't be just the two of us, right? Uegwang Moria asked expectantly. That's a secret for now, Doflamingo shook his head resolutely. Currently, he was the only one who knew about this secret. He couldn't make an exception. Humph. Putting on an act, the fox's tail will be revealed sooner or later. Taking back his gaze, Gigwang Moria was about to change the topic. He was eager to know about Dustless's past. Naturally, he could not let go of this great opportunity. The only person in the world who understood Dustless the most was probably Doflamingo. Boom boom boom. Caw caw caw. At this moment, the violent vibration made Uegwang Moria's words disappear. Then, a visible crack appeared in the closed secret room, and a cold wind blew in. Moria, you are so poor. The room used to receive VIPs is made of inferior materials. Doflamingo sneered mercilessly. Perona. Who did this? A cold, bone-chilling voice popped out from the corner of Uegwang Moria's mouth, permeating a very oppressive and fierce breath. Perona, who was drifting behind Uegwang Moria, swam uncontrollably. Under this domineering momentum, she could only linger on. This. I'm not too sure, Master Moria. Perona replied with cold sweat. She didn't leave Uegwang Moria's side for a second. Naturally, she didn't know what was happening outside. Give me half an hour to find out, or else. Humph, you know how I deal with things. I am fair in rewards and punishments. For those who neglect their duties, I will never let them go easily. Uegwang Moria warned with a roar. Doflamingo was surprised. Uegwang Moria's overbearing side was rare. At the same time, a strange color flashed in his eyes. This guy seems to be reprimanding this little girl, but in fact, he is insinuating to me. Thinking of this, Doflamingo couldn't help but look at Uegwang Moria in a new light. He didn't expect this rude big guy to have such a wise side. Perona quickly left the sealed room and went to the source of the vibration. A faint golden light appeared in the darkness, and a handsome figure suddenly blocked in front of Perona. Girl, where did this lonely ghost come from? Stay away from me. Perona, who was in a panic, roared. At the same time, she released countless ghosts to expel the mysterious young man's back, but they were all easily avoided. Is this your ability? Interesting, but compared to the ability of the devil fruit, I care more about other things. Please tell me everything, otherwise, it will be hard for me to let you go. Dustless, who was wearing casual clothes, stood in front of Perona, looking at Perona who was floating in the air with his hands behind his back. Ripples splashed in his calm eyes. Chapter 825. The appearance of Dustless scared Perona. She usually calls herself a ghost, but now she understands what a real ghost is. There is no breath, just like a standing dead person. If it wasn't for Dustless to remind her, maybe Perona wouldn't be aware of the existence of Dustless. Who are you? Suppressing the strong uneasiness in her heart, Perona asked with a trembling voice after her soft breaths had calmed down. Her tone was still full of fear. Although she did not know the person in front of her, the invisible oppression and majesty that came out of him made Perona not dare to breathe loudly. This unprecedented oppression penetrates deep into her limbs and soul. Perona wanted to resist, but she couldn't wave her hostile hands to Dustless. This simple question seems to be quite annoying. Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly and immediately shook his head and said, I am the Marine Admiral that Doflamingo and Gecko Moria talked about. Well, tell me the general content of what they said. I'm really looking forward to how ridiculous the performance of these two insects will be. After saying that, not only was Perona not afraid, she even heaved a sigh of relief. As we all know, Shichibukai is the existence recognized by the world government, so they are also allies with the Marine, and so are the subordinates of Shichibukai. I like women who are sensible. Shichibukai's subordinates, I am not their opponent. It's best not to have such a ridiculous idea. Dustless said as he saw the panic in Perona's eyes return to calmness. After that, he also released a piercing killing intent. In a trance, you can hear the screams of ghosts and howls of wolves, which is chilling. You are an admiral of the Marine. Please don't say anything, it will hurt the prestige of the Marine. Perona stared at Dustless's cold face, and there was a flash of fear in her eyes. The opponent was a Marine admiral, and she really couldn't resist. Say something. Your idea is unexpected. How should I say, unexpected ignorance? Dustless couldn't help but feel speechless. The Marine has done this kind of thing a lot, and even more despicable things than this. Well, don't force me to do it, be sensible. The impatient Dustless accentuated his tone, and there was a touch of coldness in his words. You. Perona, floating in the air, had a flash of struggle in her eyes. She told Dustless about the conversation between Doflamingo and Gecko Moria. After that, Gecko Moria will definitely tear her to pieces. I will never tell you. After a moment of contemplation, Perona replied. Dustless's eyes gradually became cold, and the light flashed on his fingertips, and a sharp whistling through the dark sky. A resplendent beam of light directly pierced through Perona, but it did not harm her at all. Ghost body, Gecko Moria's. Gecko Moria, that onion head, will ask you to be his subordinate, Gecko Onion Head, that Gecko Moria, Gecko. Black lines appeared on Perona's forehead as she floated in the air, and there were also crows flying over the sky. She immediately said proudly, You are right, any physical attack has no effect on me. However, Dustless's next sentence made Perona's face change dramatically, and she looked at him in disbelief. Is that so? Speaking of this, Dustless raised a teasing smile at the corner of his mouth. Your state should belong to the out-of-body state, but the biggest weakness is that your body can't move because of the out-of-body state. If I attack your body now. Hearing this, Perona's heart was cold, and her whole body was cold. She looked at Dustless incredulously, gritted her teeth and said, You actually recognized my fruit ability at a glance. You also understood my weakness in an instant. I gave you a chance before, but you gave it up yourself. Observation Hockey spread like water ripples, taking in the movements of the entire castle into his eyes. Dustless swept straight to Perona's room. Bastard, who told you to run? Come back quickly. Perona hurriedly followed in horror, trembling with fear. As Dustless said, in the out-of-body state, her body is restricted and can't move. Even a weak human being can easily kill her. What's more, this opponent is a Marine admiral. Whiz, Perona rushed directly through the wall to the room where her body was sleeping. Because she was a soul, she could ignore the existence of the wall and pass through the wall at will. Fortunately, I arrived in time. Seeing that there was no one in the room, Perona breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately her soul rushed straight into her body. A few seconds later, her body slowly opened her eyes. Are you awake? The first person she saw after opening her eyes was Dustless with a smile. "I have been waiting for you for a long time, and you finally woke up." Hearing this, Perona's mouth twitched violently, her teeth clenched, and she stared at Dustless indignantly. This guy must have arrived early and deliberately waited for Perona's body to resurrect before showing up. "You are despicable." Perona, whose body was resurrected, gritted her teeth and said unwillingly. She was easily subdued by Dustless. In front of a Marine Admiral, she was just a tender chick without any resistance. With a light pinch, she would die. The two sides are not at the same level at all. When a baby in swaddling clothes meets an adult strong man, resistance will only lead to death. Chapter 826. Perona's face was dark, and her pretty face lost its former luster. It was bleak, or desperate. Between Dustless and Gecko Moria, she had no other way to go. She could only choose one and offend the other. "Don't kill my patience. In fact, I can directly extract your memory, but my skill is not very good, so a little mistake may turn you into an idiot," Dustless said in a half-joking, half-serious tone, full of threat. "Damn it." Perona clenched her silver teeth, and her eyes kept flashing. Facing the unfathomable Marine Admiral in front of her, she was just a lonely boat in the vast ocean, and she may be swallowed at any time without leaving any residue. "It seems that you really want to become an idiot." The cold palm of his hand touched Perona's face and immediately climbed up and fell on the top of her head. A mysterious force overflowed from Dustless's palm. Perona was numb all over, and she trembled uncontrollably as if she had gone mad. Dustless gave her much more fear and oppression than Gecko Moria. "Goodbye." His sight turned into Rinnegan Sharingan, and the devouring power in his palm was even stronger. When he was about to forcibly extract Perona's memory, her slightly sobbing voice entered his ears. "I agree to your condition," Perona said while gnashing her teeth and glaring at Wuchen fiercely. Dustless's face was unchanged, and there was endless coldness. Obviously, tears were useless to this hard-hearted man, and it was difficult to even affect him. "But I have a condition." Perona looked at Dustless nervously, and her eyes were pleading. "You want to talk to me about conditions?" Frowning, Dustless sneered in his heart. When he was about to refuse coldly, he saw Perona's nervous and pleading eyes. His tone couldn't help but stagnate. "It seems that I still can't easily cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires." With a sigh in his heart, Dustless's cold eyes also changed subtly. He didn't feel as indifferent as before, and he finally had a little more human touch. "Why don't you tell me? However, you better not have any illusions. I can change my mind at any time, or even go back on my word and reject you." His indifferent face loosened, revealing a hint of warmth. His tone had a rare hint of gentleness. This, Perona's eyes flashed with hesitation, as if she was hesitating whether to speak or not. In her opinion, Dustless would probably laugh at her ruthlessly and then coldly refuse her. After all, he could directly extract her memories. There was no need to talk too much, and there was no need to add a burden like Perona. Then she remembered Moonlight Moria's coldness and ruthlessness, as well as his bloody means of dealing with traitors. Perona gritted her teeth and said, "After betraying Moonlight Moria, he will definitely not let me go. I must follow you to be safe." After saying that, Perona lowered her head in embarrassment. Her exquisite jade-like hands tightly pinched the corner of her clothes. She didn't even have the courage to look at Dustless. "That's it." After a while, Dustless looked at her in surprise and immediately asked softly, "I have a maid who is responsible for daily life and a capable secretary. What do you think you can do?" Perona's joyful face suddenly froze. She bit her lower lip tightly, and even some blood stains flowed out. She suddenly realized that she seemed to have no other advantages except fighting. Dustless, as a Marine Admiral, never lacked people who could fight. He himself was the predator at the top of the pyramid. Let's do this. Lowering his voice, Dustless stared at Perona and licked the dry and cracked corners of his mouth. I still lack a maid to massage my legs and shoulders. This task will be handed over to you. How about it? You. These harsh words entered Perona's ears and immediately ignited her flames. A large number of ghosts floated out of her body. Just as she was about to launch an attack and kill Dustless, she suddenly realized that she was stared at by a pair of emotionless mechanical eyes. Her whole mind short-circuited, and the dancing ghosts in the air also disappeared. Looking up, it was Dustless with a cold face. Want to dominate your own destiny? Sorry, that's the qualification of the strong. And you are just the one being dominated. In the past, it was Gecko Moria, but now it's me. These words made Perona speechless and immediately nodded silently. Being dominated by Gecko Moria is okay. The Marine Admiral in front of her is more reliable than Gecko Moria. Boom boom boom, at this moment, the gloomy large hall suddenly trembled. Immediately, it burst apart and a large hole was dug out. After which, a few human figures rushed in through the hole. That group of useless guys, it seems that Moria's soldiers have been defeated. But then again, the strength of this group of pirates is really good. They can even break through here. Perona said quite meaningfully. It was the Straw Hat pirates who broke into the interior of the hull. This is normal. His grandfather is the Marine hero Vice Admiral Garp, and his father is the world's most ferocious criminal, Dorag. It's reasonable that Luffy is talented. Looking at the Straw Hat pirates in the distance, Dustless immediately turned and merged into the dark space. Perona took a deep look at the back behind her. She did the same and gradually disappeared with Dustless. Since she chose to abandon the dark, there was no reason to continue to be Gecko Moria's subordinates. Chapter 827. In the dead secret room, Dustless was sitting leisurely on a stone chair, and Perona was standing behind him. Her face was full of dissatisfaction, and all kinds of negative emotions were clearly visible. Perona couldn't help but be angry. Dustless's requirements were too much, and his style of living was not like a Marine Admiral at all. Hey. Are you kidding me? If you massage people's shoulders like this, you will be fired sooner or later. At least be a little more professional. Even if your skills are bad, you have to keep an apologetic smile on your face, instead of looking like an enemy who killed your father. Aware of the strong force coming from his shoulders, Dustless couldn't help but say. Under this strong force, his body not only did not feel relaxed and happy, but it became more and more uncomfortable. I'm not going to wait. Perona angrily took away her small hands and complained. Pouting her face in anger, Perona scolded in her heart. She had never seen a person like Wu Qin who knew how to enjoy himself. The strength must be neither too heavy nor too light. It must be just right. Simply outrageous. Forget it, massage my legs. Dustless ordered with a straight face as his legs straightened. Perona heard the words and looked stiff. She heard the indifference in Dustless's tone. Even if she was unwilling, she still walked to Dustless and stretched out her soft little hand and gently hammered. Not bad. Dustless whispered and immediately closed his eyes leisurely. Time passed quickly, and after about half a month, he opened his bright eyes. What did Gecko Moria and the traitor Doflamingo talk about? Dustless asked directly and immediately speculated. If it's right, the content should be how to deal with me. Now the little devils are not disciplined and like to jump around. His eyes suddenly became deep, remembering that when Doflamingo ran to Mariewa for help and shelter, Dustless opened an umbrella for him at that time. Now you don't even know how to repay the kindness, but you want to plot against him. The Alliance will deal with you together, Perona said truthfully. You? Didn't I say to call him young master? Dustless glared at Perona and said unhappily. Perona was extremely unhappy. She then looked at Dustless's cold face and nodded silently. She had no choice but to lower her head when she was under someone else's roof. Let's discuss the alliance to deal with young master. Just the two of them. Dustless sneered. His words were full of disdain. It was difficult for him to pay attention to such a strange combination of mouse and sick cat. I heard there are others. Perona shook her head and immediately tilted her head to recall the contents of the previous conversation. Doflamingo once said that he had also silently roped in the people around the young master. The people around me. This is interesting. Chapter 828. In the dark corridor, two vague silhouettes were walking towards the corridor ahead. The two figures were extremely thin, and the tallest person was only about 1.75 meters. In this world where giants were flying everywhere, it was really not worth mentioning. Are you going to find trouble with Gecko Moria so casually? Catching up with Dustless, Perona asked with a strange face. Suddenly changing a boss to hit the face of the previous boss, she felt that something was wrong. She felt uncomfortable all over, and she felt like a villain. To get back what belongs to you, do you have to be sneaky? His footsteps stopped. Dustless looked at Perona in confusion. To get back what belongs to you, is it necessary to be sneaky? This is a matter of course, and it is necessary to do it openly. That's not it. Hearing this, Perona shook her head like a rattle drum. Suddenly turning over and stepping on the former boss under her feet, Perona always felt that it was a dream, and there was an unrealistic feeling. She was afraid that the cruel reality after waking up would make her desperate. Those guys are really stupid. The demon slaughtering order is still active. Dustless stared at the distant sea, and there was no trace of the navy. Demon slaughtering order. What is that? Staring at Dustless's handsome face, Perona asked curiously. Hearing this, Dustless's footsteps suddenly stopped, looking around the entire island-like ship, and casually explained, "It's nothing, just completely burn this big ship that looks unsightly." At the same time, Doflamingo also left the terrifying three-masted ship and left quietly in a submarine. He thought that no one would notice, but in fact, his every move was clearly seen by Dustless. He. I have contacted all the people who should be contacted. I hope Gecko Moria will not disappoint. Inside the submarine, Doflamingo was lying comfortably on the sofa with his legs crossed leisurely. He hummed an unknown tune as if victory was within his grasp. Hearing this, Treble, the second in command of the Don Quixote pirates, shook his head with a wry smile and couldn't help but advise, even if you can hold Royce South's people, including his men, don't forget that he still has an ancient weapon like Pluton. Treble's tone was filled with hidden bitterness as he pointed the spearhead at Doflamingo. Back then, it was this guy who had contributed Pluto's blueprint to Dustless in order to survive. This was a blatant aid to the enemy. Nether King. Humph. Doflamingo sneered and said proudly, "Don't forget that the Netherworld King's current construction base is Dressrosa. Once it's completed, I'll rob him." Doflamingo's eyes were full of fanaticism. It seemed that he could already imagine the scene of controlling Pluton, sweeping the New World, and trampling on the Yonko, 4 emperors. Even his hands and feet were waving uncontrollably. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. If he did not even dare to say a word, he would definitely become the laughing stock of the world in the future, and his reputation would be ruined. I thought you would use your brain to do things, but now it seems that I am naive. I overestimated your IQ. With a thick sneer on his face, Dustless taunted, "From beginning to end, you have made a mistake. To deal with Whitebeard, in fact, people of your level can't play a role at all. Sengoku painstakingly tried to win you over to deal with Whitebeard, but it's just to raise the momentum of Marine. Do you really think you can challenge Whitebeard with your level? Don't dream. Someone like you Guang Moria can barely deal with the captain of the Whitebeard pirates. Fighting Whitebeard head-on is like a moth to a flame. Are you looking down on me? Glaring at Dushless, Yu Guang Moria clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes were about to burst out. His tone was full of killing intent. I don't want to fight with you, but it doesn't mean that I am afraid of you. I am not a coward like Blackbeard. Don't push your luck. Yu Guang Moria trembled with anger. He really didn't want to fight with Dushless. Although he tried to deny it, he had to admit that this guy's strength was unfathomable. If he tried to challenge him, he might be doomed. But Dushless was too arrogant. Not to mention snatching away his subordinates for the time being, they also ridiculed him again and again. Guguang Moria could not swallow this in any case. No matter what, he used to be one of the world's famous great pirates. Now, he was like a clown in front of Wu Qin. He was not presentable and could not enter the Hall of Elegance. Just in a flash, the atmosphere went down sharply, full of gunpowder. As long as it was a tiny spark, it could detonate Yu Guang Moria's gunpowder barrel. I am also telling a fact. What you said just now, I will return it to you. Dushless said mercilessly. Immediately, his eyes suddenly turned cold, overflowing with cold light. It seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't jump out of Perona's shadow. That's good. I will show you a little. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to understand the meaning of my previous words. Open your eyes and see clearly. The gap between us is so big. With a bright light, Dustless disappeared in an instant, flashing toward Yu Guang Moria. In the same place, only Perona, who was unaware of it, was left. Shadow Magician. A monster composed entirely of shadows condensed in an instant, and it was exactly the same size as Yu Guang Moria. This is one of my moves. It can be used for defense and attack. If you want to hit me, you have to fight him first. Yu Guang Moria laughed wildly. Fight? What are you dreaming about? This is just an unequal war, a one-sided annihilation. Crack. The shadow that gave him high hopes was easily torn apart by Dustless in less than a second. It was so simple that it was no different from tearing paper scraps. Chapter 830. Gecko Moria's eyes were dull and he couldn't believe that the shadow was torn apart and destroyed in an instant. His head was blank like a paste. It was the first time in his life that the shadow was destroyed so easily. Therefore, he was in a trance. Laser. The moment the golden flash touched Gecko Moria, he barely reacted. Shadow Warrior. A shadow with the same size and appearance as Gecko Moria rose from the ground and once again blocked in front of him, resisting the attack of the light beam. Boom boom boom. Caw caw caw, the flash burst, and the hot wave of fire swallowed the entire shadow. A large hole was torn in the abdomen of the 5 or 6 meters high black shadow, and it immediately collapsed, like ink splashing all over the ground. The shadow was defeated so easily. Looking at the black stains in disbelief, Moria felt that he was dreaming. This kind of thing, it would be strange if it works. As I said before, this is an unequal war. From the beginning, this is destined to be a unilateral annihilation. You have no chance of winning. The affirmative tone announced that Gecko Moria was destined to be defeated, just like God's will. Don't talk nonsense, I want to see how big the gap between Shichibukai and Admiral is. Gecko Moria argued with a red face. The shadow on the ground was strangely suspended in the air, and immediately twisted rapidly. Suddenly, it turned into countless black bats, biting toward Dustless and Perona. Scattered bats. Tens of thousands of bats flew over continuously. Their mouths were wide open, revealing sharp fangs that could easily tear a human's bones apart. Have you run out of ideas? Only this kind of boring trick is left. Taking a step forward, looking at the large number of shadow bats in front of him, Dustless sneered, his eyes widened, an invisible ripple spread. Buzz, the mysterious force broke out of his body and turned into an intangible wave. Where it passed, the buildings were cracked, and the shadow bats galloping were all annihilated. Gecko Moria was shocked, and the mysterious wave just now also brushed his body. He stretched out his mentality of being unable to resist, and even absurdly wanted to kneel down and surrender. Was that Haushiku Haki? The hair all over his body stood up uncontrollably. Moonlight Moria's body was still trembling slightly. If one looked closely, one would find that his body was crushed. He was just bent over and looked at the ground with a blank face. Just now, the Haushiku Haki that almost crushed the entire castle has obviously reached the point of perfection, and the huge deterrent is enough to rewrite the natural environment, and even the sky can be crushed. Courtesy demands reciprocity. Since you finished your attack, it's my turn. Without waiting for Moonlight Moria to react, Dustless disappeared in an instant. When his body flashed again, he was already infinitely close to Moonlight Moria's face, followed by his shins full of flashes. Lightspeed kick. In an instant, the light became dozens of times more dazzling than before, and it was filled with a strong destructive power. The speed of light was beyond human understanding. By the time Gecko Moria realized it, he had already made defensive preparations, but the effect was still minimal. Boom boom boom, the huge body was impacted by the flash, and after a moment of stalemate, Moonlight Moria flew out and was forced to fly hundreds of feet away, and during that time, he also smashed several walls. Even the stone pillars supporting the castle were smashed and destroyed, and it was possible to tilt and collapse at any time. It hurts, ouch, screams resounded through the dark void. Moonlight Moria grimaced in pain. He was covered in blood, and his belly, which was attacked by Dustless's lightspeed kick, was obviously scorched and sunken. Even though Dustless's height and Moonlight Moria's were worlds apart, the difference in strength between the two was also worlds apart. Do you understand now? This is the gap between us. People of your level are decades too early to deal with Whitebeard. Although Moonlight Moria's strength is good, if he wants to have an effect on Whitebeard, he must reach the level of a Marine Admiral. The current Moonlight Moria is obviously not enough. Scattered bats. The dense bats once again swept out of his body, and the direction locked was Dustless. Same old trick. It's boring. Looking at the flying bats with a blank face, Dustless did not hide. He thought that these bats were used to attack, and then he would use his elementalization to avoid them. He did not expect the situation to take a turn for the worse. Shadow box. With Moria's order, countless shadow bats directly melted and turned into a black cage, trapping Dustless in it. Ha ha ha. Now you can't move, Poochie. The sharp cold light cut through the void, and the golden afterimage that had not yet retreated could be seen. The castle was suddenly lit up, and looking at it, a sharp sword easily penetrated the black shadow cage. Dustless walked out of it like taking a stroll, his eyes did not change, and the time from start to finish was less than a second. Even if you are a slow idiot, you have to have a limit. The gap between us, you can never surpass or make up for it. My realm, the probability of you reaching it is 0. Chapter 831. Looking at Dustless's thin body, Gecko Moria raised his hands and fell to the ground again. Gecko Moria looked cold, and a sense of powerlessness rose in his heart. This powerlessness and fragility deep in his soul almost made him unable to raise his hands to resist the enemy. After a short fight, the result almost made Gecko Moria vomit blood and collapse. The two sides were not at the same level at all, and there was a dimensional gap. His face was all squeezed together, and Gecko Moria looked unwilling, locked on Perona, who was grinning, and the flame index in his heart was rising. He can admit that he lost to Dustless. Anyway, there are many pirates caught by him in the New World, and it is normal to lose to a Marine Admiral. In the world, I am afraid that only the legendary Yonko, for emperors, has this ability. Don't be proud. Glaring gloomily at Perona, Gecko Moria's low tone was crazy, and you can hear the meaning of a fight. Moria, don't ask for trouble, hand over Perona's shadow. Sweeping the struggle in Gecko Moria's eyes, Dustless sighed and shook his head. If you really make me angry, it's not as simple as skin trauma. Gecko Moria was bruised all over, but it was still skin trauma, and it didn't hurt his ribs or internal organs. As a member of the 7 warlords of the sea, Dustless still chose to take special care of him. If it was any other pirate, they might have died long ago. Then should I thank you for not killing me? Hearing this, Gecko Moria's eyes were burning, and he immediately gnashed his teeth and screamed. Of course. Dustless said with his eyes as calm as water. If he really wanted to kill Gecko Moria, this guy would have died long ago. With a change of topic, Wu Chen's tone was obviously cold. However, this special care also has a time limit. If you miss it, it's as difficult as ascending to heaven to look back. Hearing this, Gigwang Moria's expression stiffened, and his clenched fists trembled. After glaring fiercely at Perona, his tone was full of sarcasm and disdain. Do you only know how to hide behind others? If you have the guts, come out and fight me fair and square. These fierce words were obviously meant to provoke him. Unfortunately, he was destined to be disappointed. Not only did Perona not fall into the trap, but she also made a grimace at Moonlight Moria. The look of a villain intoxicated with success was quite funny. Bastard, just you wait. Seeing this scene, Moonlight Moria was so angry that he vomited blood. Half an hour ago, he was still trembling in fear. Half an hour later, he dared to ride on his head and look at his face openly. The depression in his heart was self-evident. Moria! A sharp roar came from the ground below. Looking down, it was the members of the Straw Hat Pirates and the particularly conspicuous skeleton man, Brooke. Obviously, the Straw Hats had experienced a big battle and there were obvious scars all over their bodies. That group of useless trash. Moonlight Moria's face was livid. He suddenly realized that his ability to select his subordinates was indeed not very good. Except for the traitor, it looked like the other members had all been trampled by the Straw Hats. It's a little early for you to come here for the time being. It's more appropriate to go back a little. Lifting his right foot gently, a large number of photons lingered on it, revealing the sharpness and destructive power, far more powerful than the attack on Moonlight Moria just now. Even because of the excessive shine, it was as dazzling as the sun. The scorching and dazzling flash could burn human eyes at a glance. Light speed kick. The flash poured down, leaving an afterimage in the void, and went straight to the Straw Hat Pirates on the ground. The unexpected flash was extremely fast and hit the ground almost instantly. A huge flame slowly rose into the air. Boom boom boom, the harsh roar resounded throughout the terrifying 3-masted ship, and the fire in the night was particularly bright, giving clear guidance to the Marines in the distance because of the devil-slaying order. A large deep pit appeared on the scorched ground, and everyone in the Straw Hat Pirates was deeply trapped in it. Their bodies were severely burned, and everyone's consciousness was temporarily fainted. Only Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy were fine. Their willpower was extremely strong, and they barely supported their bodies to stand up. They couldn't help but raise their heads sadly. Just now, they didn't even see who the enemy was and they were attacked by this terrifying attack. I'm asking you for the last time, hand over Perona's shadow, don't make me repeat this sentence, or next time your head will be moved, Moria. With a murderous tone, he was obviously not joking. I Moonlight Moria's face twitched. In his life, this day seemed to be the most tragic day. His subordinates betrayed him, and his ship was attacked by a group of fleas. Except for Perona, his subordinates were completely wiped out, and he was attacked by the Straw Hat Pirates one after another. And now he was being threatened by this Marine Admiral. You are ruthless. Moonlight Moria finally chose to let go of Perona's shadow. The only end for him to go against Dustless is death. He can only bury this unforgettable hatred deep in his heart. When he meets Doflamingo in the future, this blood feud will be repaid with interest, and it will be impossible for him to forget it. A black shadow swept out of Moonlight Moria's body and went straight to Perona. Chapter 832. The black shadow drilled into Perona's body, and the shadow that had disappeared for many years reappeared. Perona waved her arms excitedly like a little girl. It's just an ant. Why do you not hesitate to fight against Shichibukai? It's not good for you as a marine. Gecko Moria asked in a low voice. Anyone would think twice about offending Shichibukai for a worthless little girl. It's simple. It seemed that Gecko Moria didn't understand such a simple question. Dustless showed a helpless expression. No way, keeping promises is my biggest shortcoming. Let's go. Immediately, regardless of Yuguang Moria's astonished eyes, Dustless leisurely turned around and simply ignored his existence and left. Perona nodded gently and secretly looked at Gecko Moria, who was angry but didn't dare to speak. Her heart was violently shocked, like a stormy sea that could never be calm. Following Gecko Moria for many years, Perona witnessed Gecko Moria's coldness. He was an existence that killed people without blinking. Others in front of him were like insects trembling. Now Gecko Moria was the opposite. In front of Dustless, his identity was changed and he became a weak insect. You think you can escape from Lousy's claws? You will look good in the future. Looking at Wu Chen's back, even though he was close at hand, in Moonlight Moria's eyes, he was too far away to catch up. It won't be long before you look good. Gecko Moria roared ferociously from the bottom of his heart. His whole body erupted with astonishing hostility, as terrifying as a ghost. At first, he hesitated whether to cooperate with Doflamingo to deal with Dustless, but now it seems imperative. That kind of character, if you want to surpass him with your own efforts, you can do it in your dreams. Gecko Moria muttered and remembered what Doflamingo said at the time. At that time, he thought it was a joke, but now it seems that it is true. The cooperation with a hesitant attitude has now become affirmation. As a pirate, you can either become the king of 10,000, or be suppressed forever, unable to raise your head. Apart from these two roads, there is no other way to go. Why don't you kill him? Perona held the pink parasol and stared at Wu Qin, who was calm and composed. She asked puzzledly. With those people taking care of it, we don't need to worry. Dustless pointed at the straw hats and left. Them. Perona's face was full of doubts. Although the group of people's fighting power and willpower were amazing, they were barely able to deal with Shichibukai, and they were even setting themselves on fire. Pure combat power doesn't mean anything. What's more, several of them together are not much worse than Emolia. Dustless was too lazy to talk nonsense. No matter what the reason was, it was an indisputable fact that the Straw Hats had crushed Moonlight Moria. At the same time, about an hour later. You have to hurry up. Before I came, I gave the Marine an order to kill the devil. It won't be long before Gecko Moria's home. I'm afraid it will become a pile of fire. Boom. Turning around leisurely, Tyrant Bear's calm voice was obviously raised, apparently angry, and he said hoarsely, You dare to order the Marine to attack Shichibukai, without authorization? Is the Marine going to tear up the agreement with Shichibukai? This is just for Gecko Moria. What's more, it's not you. Now your identity is just a research material for the government. there is no need to worry about it. Dustless said casually, and his tone was somewhat gloating, this is his own fault. A while ago, when he was dealing with Whitebeard Gecko Moria, he ran away at the critical time. This is just the punishment given to him by the Marine. It's obviously just your personal malicious revenge. How dare you drag the Marine's head? Taking a deep look at Dustless, Bear turned and left. At this moment, the Marine fleet, after several turns, also found the trace of the terrible three-masted ship and galloped over. This was all because of Dustless's previous lightspeed kick, which allowed them to find the direction from this strange sea. The scale of this devil-slaughtering order fleet is obviously different from the past. Whether it was the O'Hara incident 20 years ago or the Sentinel Island incident, not long ago, it was far less than the scale of this fleet. The number of Marine battleships assembled is obviously more than 10 battleships and 5 vice-admirals. The scale has reached 20 or 30 battleships. I'm afraid the number of vice-admirals is completely more than 5. After all, the opponent this time is one of the Shichibukai. In the past, Gecko Moria also challenged 100 Beast Kaido. Even if he is unfortunately defeated, his strength is worthy of being treated with caution. I really don't know how Gecko Moria provoked that person, Mole Vice-Admiral and a group of Vice-Admirals gathered at the bow of the ship inside. The person who issued the task of slaughtering the devil-slaughtering order was Dustless. They thought that Sengoku would directly refute Dustless's order, but they didn't expect him to simply listen to it and even order other ships to support. All the Vice-Admirals were silent. They naturally didn't understand the cause of the matter, but they were responsible for the implementation. What's more, Sengoku had already nodded in disguise. Let's do it. Chapter 834. After Dustless disappeared, the awakened Straw Hat pirates immediately fought with Gecko Moria. Luffy, who reported the love index, vowed to take back the shadow for Brook and he would not break his promise. After a lot of hard work, the entire pirate group was almost crippled, and they defeated Gecko Moria. Only Zoro and Sanji barely kept their consciousness in the entire pirate group, and everyone else almost fainted. Of course, Robin was pretending to be asleep. You actually defeated Gecko Moria. Congratulations, young pirates, the voice of surprise came quietly, and Zoro and Sanji both had goosebumps all over their bodies. The two looked at each other in horror and could see the horror in each other's eyes. The owner of this mysterious voice, maybe if he wanted to kill the two of them just now, his body would have been separated by now. The two of them looked for the source of the voice in unison, and what they saw was a behemoth at least 5 or 6 meters tall, dressed quite similar to Big Bear, holding a book in his hand, expressionless like a sculpture. He looked at Zoro and Sanji with a condescending gaze. Worthy of being your son, Dorag, staring at the unconscious Luffy, Bear nodded with satisfaction and immediately looked at Zoro and Sanji, and his eyes with glasses flashed. Who are you? Zoro's Tachi was unsheathed and he looked at Tyrant Bear warily, smelling an unprecedented danger and oppression. The cigarette butt in Sanji's hand was also pinched out, and he was also meticulously guarded against Tyrant Bear, smelling an unprecedented ominous aura from him. Far more terrifying than Gecko Moria. I am one of the Shichibukai, like Gecko Moria and Crocodile, who was defeated by you before. Tyrant Bear suddenly sat on the ground and carefully flipped through the book in his hand, ignoring the nervous Zoro and Sanji, and said to himself, this time. I was ordered to catch you. You don't need to say this, I guessed it. Sanji and Zoro said in unison, the Shichibukai that have appeared at present are their enemies, plus this bear-like creature in front of them. This is already the third, the first two are Crocodile and Gecko Moria. Is that so? The book he was reading suddenly closed, and Tyrant Bear stood up. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Bartholomew Bear. Do it. Don't expect me to let you go like Lewis South. Bear's tone was low, and there was already a transparent air shield floating in his hand. Obviously, he was serious. Although these people's strength was not bad for the time being, in the new world where there were so many strong people, they were at most considered beginner-level rookies. This could also be considered a form of training. Lois South. Who is that guy? Zoro and Sanji looked at each other and looked at the tyrant bear in confusion. You don't even know his name. But that's right, it's still too early for half-baked people like you to touch his domain. Dustless's figure floated in his eyes as Tyrant Bear explained, the person who severely injured you was actually Royce South, but he seemed to have left the three-masted ship due to some other matters. Why did he deliberately let us go? Zoro and Sanji didn't understand. In their pirate group, there was no relative of Dustless. Bear's voice was surprised, and he immediately said, deliberately let you go. Don't you understand? Bear's tone was filled with sadness and pity, as well as undisguised sneer and contempt. Will the giant that supports the sky be as ignorant as Littlefinger? Don't think that you are strong. In fact, you are not even qualified to fill the gaps between his teeth. He mercilessly attacked several people, and there was a deep sneer in his words. These merciless words made Zoro and Sanji clench their fists and deeply hurt their self-esteem, making the two of them stare at Tyrant Bear, full of killing intent. You just worked so hard to kill Gecko Moria. Looking at Gecko Moria, who had fainted in the distance, Tyrant Bear pointed to him and said, as long as that person wants to, I guess he can kill Gecko Moria in an instant. Tyrant Bear said bluntly, and immediately remembered Dustless's strange eyes. Maybe you don't have to do it. That man's most powerful thing is not physical attack. His mysterious eyes may be just a casual glance at Gecko Moria and he can easily kill him in seconds. There is no need to do it at all. These words are not alarmist talk. Tyrant Bear once tasted the horror of Dustless's dojutsu. His strange abilities are almost impossible to guard against. You have seen the tip of the iceberg of Royce South before, or when he fought against you before, the power he showed was limited to the human period. Sanji frowned when he heard this and immediately mocked, only limited to the human period. You say that as if he is a god. Hearing this, Tyrant Bear shook his head gently and said, I'm just making an analogy, but one thing is undeniable. He has not aged for more than 10 years, and his strength is as deep as a black hole. He is indeed a godlike enemy. The passage of time is the natural enemy of any creature. Even a strong man like Whitebeard can't escape the erosion of time. After a long time, his body will gradually age. Dustless, on the other hand, has escaped the devastation of time and has always maintained the young appearance of 17 or 18 years old, and has not changed for more than 10 years. Don't think it's incredible, I have tasted his peerless talent. Chapter 835. The old-fashioned face loosened and Tyrant Bear sighed without a trace, slightly disappointed. This group of young pirates may be good, but their knowledge is shallow. The end of the ocean is infinite, and there are countless strong people in the New World. There are many Admiral-level strong people, and there are even many exaggerated top-level strong people, enough to be on par with the Yonko, 4 emperors. Marine Admiral is just the rank of Royce South's position. It doesn't represent his full strength. No one has seen him fight with all his strength. His strength is still a mystery. Tyrant Bear explained, vaguely filled with sadness. It was fine when he didn't think about it, but after comparing their strength with Dustless, that little sense of hope was instantly gone. He has deep doubts about this. Luffy and Royce South don't look like people of the same level. Bang bang bang, at the same time, the long-awaited Marine Demon Slayer order finally arrived. The sound of cannons resounded through the sky, and even the sky was blasted open. The sky above was covered with rain, and soft sunshine was revealed. After so many years, this is the first time I've experienced the sun, Brook said absent-mindedly. His shadow was taken away from him, and the sun was an unreachable dream for him. The dense sound of cannons engulfed the entire giant ship, setting off a flash of fire. The soil buried deep in the ground was refurbished, and black smoke rose into the clouds. The hell-like three-masted ship was even more dead. Demon Slayer order. It's just a so-so. Tyrant Bear looked calm, and his performance was unusually dull. This kind of intensive bombardment is limited to ordinary humans, and it is harmless to pirates with strength of more than 100 million. Bear's impact. A giant white air shield was squeezed and constantly compressed and expanded. Then the voids suddenly trembled and made bursts of whining. A violent shock wave spread and the air shield burst instantly. Caw caw caw, the cannonballs that flew within a few hundred meters were impacted by the white air wave and exploded directly before they hit the ground, forming a large vacuum area. Even the low hills in the distance collapsed under the impact. Is this the extent of his strength? So powerful. When Sanji and Zoro saw this scene, their eyes widened. This destructive power was exactly what the Straw Hat Pirates were looking for. In the hands of the Tyrant Bear, it was as simple as eating and drinking. However, even so, this man with unfathomable strength still showed fear and admiration when he talked about Dustless. Unlike the Straw Hats who knew nothing, Tyrant Bear knew that Dustless was an extreme existence. The only people who could be on par with him were the 5 people from the world government. 10 days later, at the Sabaody archipelago. It had been about 10 years since he last came here. Dustless strolled along a small path with an elegant environment. Behind him, Perona floated in the air like a fairy. Both of them held a bounty list and newspapers in their hands. Bang! A dull noise entered his ears. Dustless was slightly stunned and immediately looked up. It turned out that Perona, who was engrossed in reading the newspaper, didn't notice that she hit the treetops. I regret it now. With such a careless maid like you, perhaps I won't even know who did it when I'm assassinated. Wuchen rolled his eyes at Perona and said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. In all fairness, Perona's fruit ability is good, but people like her don't seem to be suitable for fighting. She is careless. Dustless still remembers that she was scared by Usopp in the original work. Forget it. It doesn't matter if I keep her as a vase. Thinking of his current strength, Dustless's mouth outlined a confident smile and immediately felt relieved. What is it about? Dustless asked curiously as he stuffed a mouthful of popcorn-like food into his mouth. He was curious about the contents of the newspaper that could attract a witch like Perona. The next stop in the Sabaody archipelago is the Fishman Island, so there are a large group of pirates gathered here. Most of them are unprecedented peak existences, but among the thousands of pirates, only 12 supernovas were elected, Perona explained in a light voice. It was sweet and sounded quite enjoyable. Dustless didn't have time to enjoy the sound of nature. If he remembered correctly, there should be 11 supernovas. His lips squirmed and when he was about to ask, Perona's voice sounded in advance. Among them, Uchiha Madara, who has a bounty of 500 million berries, is the most eye-catching. Perona looked at the newspaper attentively. Uchiha Madara, who was full of black tubes, had cold eyes, and an overbearing and unruly face. She didn't know why she had a ridiculous feeling of déjà vu. 500 million is too little. It's too one-sided and ignorant. In my opinion, it's at least 1 billion. Sengoku is underestimating him too much. Dustless looked at the series of numbers in the newspaper with disdain. A mere 500 million berries is really worthless. Uchiha Madara is far from worth this price, 1 billion. Perona's pretty face turned black, her lips moved, looking at Dustless's face full of contempt as if he had been wronged. She couldn't help but feel entangled and speechless. You know, this character named Uchiha Madara can be said to have refreshed the history of pirates. He wants to debut and has a bounty of 1 billion berries. Do you think he is a god? One of the Yonko, 4 emperors, has a bounty of 800 million berries. When talking about the Yonko, 4 emperors, Perona deliberately stressed the word Yonko for emperors. The Yonko for emperors are the emperors who dominate the pirates of the world, and there are almost no characters who can tame them. Chapter 836. Looking at Perona faintly, Dustless was indifferent to the Yonko for emperors, in her words. His eyes were as calm as water, and it was difficult to stir up a weak ripple. To put it nicely, it was the Yonko for emperors who ruled the world. To put it bluntly, it was just a big bullying. The captain of the Straw Hat Pirates and the green-haired man are among the 11 supernovas. Perona's mouth was slightly open with a surprised expression. A few days ago, Dustless and she received the news that the Straw Hat Pirates defeated Gecko Moria. This thing is good. Looking at the popcorn-like particles in his hand, Dustless covered it again and threw it into his mouth. It melted in his mouth, and the sweet taste lingered between his teeth. Little gigolo over there, sit carefully and don't move. Just then, a group of black-clothed men suddenly ran over, and there was a large group of people behind them, rushing in the direction of Dustless and Perona. They won't call us again, will they? Dustless whispered in Perona's ear. Hearing this, Perona's beautiful face flashed a strange color, and she immediately turned and looked around. There was no one here, only Dustless and her were left. It should be me and the young master. There is no one else except us, and are we in the wrong place? Perona's eyes were filled with doubts, and she looked as far as possible. There were many people hiding in the dark alleys in the distance, watching the black-clothed men approaching Perona and Dustless, all of them gloating. Could it be? With a stiff look, Perona immediately remembered the most terrifying species living on this island. It was not the ferocious pirates, nor the marines all over the island, but the black and white Tenryubito. Whether it is marines or pirates, they will be silent in front of Tenryubito. Young master, let's leave this place as soon as possible. Pulling Dustless's clothes, Perona whispered with nervousness and fear. Run. The word run doesn't exist in my dictionary. Moreover, these people clearly know each other. Why are they running? Dustless looked at Perona with an idiotic expression. He realized that he recognized the group of black-clothed people who ran over. Even though many years had passed, he still vaguely remembered them. If you know what's good for you, don't move. You've been taken care of, so you don't have to worry about food and drink in the future. As for you, although you're not bad-looking, our master isn't interested in women. You can scram now. The man in black glanced at Perona and waved his men to chase her away. I'm being kept. Dustless's heart, which had been calm for many years, couldn't help but stagnate when he heard this for the first time in his life. His thoughts short-circuited, and his face was full of astonishment as if he was in a dream. Ignorant country bumpkin, you didn't hear wrong. Come with me now, and you won't have to worry about food and drink in the future. The group of black-clothed men shouted impatiently. All of you, back off. A cold shout came into his ears, and the group of black-clothed men's nerves reflexively separated. A graceful woman with bubbles and a pretty good appearance entered Dustless's eyes. Shololia, you're not the one who wants to keep me, are you? The stunning woman who came was Tenryubito Shololia, and her fat pig brother, Charles Ross, was the protagonist who was once beaten by Luffy. If you're willing to give up the position of Marine Admiral, I really don't mind keeping you. The Roswald family has no problem keeping you. Of course, the premise is that you don't dislike it. Shololia looked at Dustless's delicate face and said seriously. This was completely from the bottom of her heart. Compared with other Tenryubito of Mariewa, Dustless was perfect in all aspects, and compared with the group of incompetent pigs, he was a perfect lover. It's really a surprise that you can value me so much, but I didn't expect the little girl who was timid to be so bold. Casually glancing at Shololia, Dustless said indifferently, I'm sorry, I have no interest in your Tenryubito's bad taste. Hearing this, Shilolio looked slightly stiff, and her eyebrows flashed with displeasure. She didn't expect Dustless to not give her face. After she was about to order her men to tie her back, she looked at Dustless's smiling face and put down her raised hand. Her brother was thrown into the garbage dump by Dustless in Mariewa. You're not a Tenryubito. Don't forget, you're also one of us. Shilolio reminded. As a Tenryubito, Dustless's style is not that of a Tenryubito. No. I'm different from you. After raising his finger and shaking it, Dustless immediately stood up and stretched, and said softly, there are differences between Tenryubito, and you will be eliminated sooner or later. Let's go, Perona. Then the master and the servant completely ignored the countless stunned eyes and left everyone with their backs. You are a Tenryubito. Perona trembled and said, the fear in her eyes was clear. Thinking of the horror and perversion of Tenryubito, Perona instinctively distanced herself from Dustless. She thought that after escaping from Gecko Moria, she would be able to enjoy life after becoming a marine admiral, but she didn't expect to step into a deeper hell. Yes, I am indeed a Tenryubito. Dustless nodded and admitted frankly. I'm really blind. Perona pursed her lips and wanted to cry but had no tears. She suddenly felt that following Gecko Moria was too happy. The smiling tiger in front of her is the real giant hand covering the sky. Compared to him, Gecko Moria is just an insignificant particle on the beach by the sea. Chapter 837. Carolia Palace, a group of black-clothed men shivered and lowered their heads in shame. The cold sweat on their foreheads almost condensed into raindrops. In the eyes of Tenryubito, human beings are just weeds, worthless. Killing them is just a bad mood for a while. This kind of thing happens from time to time. Get back to me, useless waste. Shilolia's bright and jade-like face was distorted, and she loudly reprimanded the black-clothed man who did not do his job well, and immediately left in a huff, leaving the pirates hiding in the dark alley. They all looked like they had seen a ghost. So far, this seems to be the first person who can anger Tenryubito and calmly talk and laugh and leave safely. Hey! Am I dazzled? Angering Tenryubito is safe and sound. What is the origin of that little white face? Staring at the disappearing figures of Dustless and Perona, a group of pirates looked at them with disbelief. Dustless met Tenryubito not only did not kneel, but also angered the other party. They thought that blood would be spilled on the spot. Unexpectedly, it was the female Tenryubito who fled. The floating Perona was motionless, no different from a sculpture. It's just a Tenryubito. There's no need to be so surprised. Staring at Perona, who was both frightened and surprised, he could only sigh. This is the impression of Tenryubito in the eyes of normal human beings. How can I not be surprised? Perona, who returned to her senses, said. The Tenryubito who did all kinds of evil was right next to her, and she was calm, not screaming. That's because you didn't ask me, or I will be honest with you. Anyway, it's just a small problem. Dustless was quite casual. To be honest, I never cared about the exaggerated and horrible identity of Tenryubito. I just laughed it off. If you want to live safely in the world, only absolute strength, no matter how scary the identity aura is, there will always be a day when it fails. Dustless said in a light voice. Now most of the Tenryubito are living a decadent life. It seems that they have forgotten the attack on Mariachi by Tiger of the Fishman clan more than 10 years ago. In a chaotic world where ambitious and ruthless people were born, the only one who could rely on was himself. It's easy for you to talk. Do you know how many people envy the celestial dragons? Perona rolled her eyes when she heard this. Those humans who hated the sky dragon were actually jealous in disguise. That status was not inferior to that of a god, and it was something that everyone yearned for even in their dreams. You will never understand the feeling of being lonely at the top. Glancing at Perona, Dustless crossed his arms in front of his chest and stared at the chaotic crowd in the distance. He walked over and could hear the screams of fighting and the sound of flesh being cut apart. Are you blind? How dare you offend our captain? Eating your food here is the result of your ancestors burning incense for 18 generations. The ferocious pirate grabbed the young man dressed as a chef. His expression was as ferocious as a ghost. The chef's forehead was stained with blood, and there was an obvious wound the size of a middle finger. The captain he was talking about was a big guy with a scar on the left side of his face. Really, although I'm not interested in catching Marines, but, a lazy and helpless voice came, and there was a bright light. However, as a Marine Admiral, even if it's just a temporary idler, you're hurting people in front of me. You don't give me face. Hey, the golden beam was fleeting, leaving only an afterimage in the sky, and immediately rushed straight to the captain with a scar on the left side of his face. Pucci, in the position of his heart, a scorched hole suddenly appeared and was easily penetrated, and he could see the people on the other side with a dull expression on their faces. The big guy who was killed in an instant tried to turn his head and looked at Dustless. When he closed his eyes in despair, he recognized the identity of Dustless. Marine Admiral. When did you come? He was unwilling to die. He was inexplicably killed by a Marine Admiral. He felt wronged, especially in the Sabaody archipelago. He had never heard of an admiral's whereabouts. Run, this guy is a Marine Admiral. Damn, why didn't the Admiral even make a move? Why did he appear in the Sabaody archipelago for no reason? Idiot, you don't understand this. This year's supernova is known as the Evil Era in the history of One Piece. In addition to the monster named Uchiha Madara who has a bounty of 500 million berries, there are 11 other pirates with a bounty of more than 100 million berries. It's normal for the Marine to plan to kill them in the Sabaody archipelago. It's difficult to find them in the second half of the New World. With the appearance of Dustless, the gathered pirates immediately fled desperately, and they could hear each other screaming. The top existence of an admiral is not something they can touch. It's just a face-to-face encounter, and they may be easily killed. A mouse that bullies the weak and fears the strong. Looking at the fleeing pirates, Dustless shook his head and was about to leave when a gunshot fell, followed by a dark bullet whistling. Pirates want to be famous in the world. The fastest way is to defeat famous people. As an admiral, Dustless is naturally the prey of some pirates who want to be famous. It seems that the bastard Charles shot the merman named Kimi, an idiot who spun a cocoon around himself. The doubts disappeared in an instant. No wonder Luffy's face was ferocious. He, who valued feelings most in his life, watched his friend's blood splatter on the spot. Naturally, his killing intent soared. What are you looking at? I am a world noble celestial dragon. I killed a slave. You all have to die for me. Chalmers hid behind Dustless and shouted when he saw the straw hat staring at him ferociously. Even Dustless frowned when he saw that the straw hats were glaring at him like wolves. Idiot who doesn't know how to remember. Do you think the identity of a celestial dragon is invincible? You were beaten twice, but you still don't learn. Turning his head to look at Charles, Dustless couldn't help but be speechless. Some pirates are afraid of celestial dragons, and some are stupid, such as Luffy. Not to mention celestial dragons, even if God came, they would still dare to fight. Rubber machine gun. A dense rain of bullets came. Dustless smiled indifferently and used elementalization to avoid Luffy's attack, but Charles behind him was in trouble. Bang bang bang, Dustless, who looked coldly at Charles, chose to stand by and watch. In an instant, Charles was beaten into a bloody mess, dying, and was immediately blown away by the angry Luffy. At the same time, Zoro turned into a shadow and swept in front of Charles, holding his Tachi high. "Hurry, save me, Royce South. If I die, you will also be in big trouble. Help me kill this group of untouchables, and I will not treat you badly in the future." Charles exhausted all his strength and said to Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless stood still, his face indifferent. "Don't kill him. We want to escape from the Sabaody archipelago. We must have this guy as a hostage. The surrounding sea area is blocked by the marine." Gid, who had been seriously injured by Dustless, was dragged by 2 crew members, and his appearance was quite miserable. "Yes, you can't kill me, I'm a hostage. If you kill me, Royce South will definitely kill all of you. Otherwise, he won't be able to answer to Sengoku," Charles roared. At this moment, Dustless raised his thumb with a cold expression. He gathered a high-density light beam and aimed it at Chalros. "You're right, Charles. It's too unfair to let a celestial dragon like you be a hostage. So, for world peace, you should die peacefully." All the other supernovas followed Kid's example and started to harm themselves. They used the pain they had never felt before to try and free themselves from the intense pressure. Jida, his contemptuous eyes fell on Jida, who was struggling at death's door. After glancing at him, Dustless retracted his gaze. "You could have stayed where you were and avoided the disaster. But you came here to die. You even wanted to threaten me with that stupid pig, Charles. You think you're smart. But it seems that there is one person missing." Dustless glanced at the supernovas one by one. Suddenly, a familiar figure was missing. "Mr. Admiral. Are you looking for me?" A gust of cold wind came, followed by a slightly hoarse voice. Behind him, a cold light slashed straight at him. The slender Tachi was sharp and unstoppable. "Long time no see, lol. However, you seem to have only grown taller. The wisdom in your brain has not increased." The moment the Tachi swept across and was about to cut off Dustless's neck, it was easily stopped. Even if Law gritted his teeth and used all his strength, the Tachi that was close to his neck could not be moved. "You only used one finger." Law, whose face was full of hatred, desperately increased the strength of the Tachi, but Dustless was just expressionless. He casually raised his dark thumb and blocked Law's full attack. A moment later, the indifferent face gradually loosened, and the emotionless pupils showed subtle changes. "This kind of boring game. How long are you going to play, Law? Is this all you've achieved over the years? I still have great expectations for this reunion, but now it seems that the cruel reality makes me speechless." At the end of his speech, Wu Chen's body was filled with an ominous aura. An explosive power condensed in his body like a volcano that was about to erupt. The surroundings were deathly silent and filled with an indescribable despair. Deep in the sky, a dense vortex appeared like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. A majestic and ancient golden light swept out from it. How is this possible? Is this guy a god or a human? What kind of ability is he? The supernovas roared in shock, complaining about the unfairness of fate. Looking up at the sky, countless divine weapons of different structures piled up all over the sky. The golden luster revealed the ancient vicissitudes of life, with an ancient sense of desolation. "Kai Bao of the King." As Dustless's indifferent voice fell, the number of divine weapons floating in the sky increased several times. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.